Chosen one, why did God let you suffer when others sailed through life untouched? Why did your prayers seem to echo in silence while you watched others receive instant answers? Why were you chosen to carry burdens that would have crushed weaker souls? Chosen one, stop right there. Put your phone down. Close your laptop. Whatever you were doing before this moment, it can wait. Because what I'm about to tell you will shatter every lie you've believed about your pain. This message didn't find you by accident. You didn't stumble here scrolling through endless content. Heaven summoned you here because you've walked through the fire, and listen to me, you passed. Right now, at this very moment, the Holy Spirit is confirming this truth in your chest. That burning sensation, that sudden stillness, that inexplicable knowing that these words are meant for you. That's not emotion. That's divine recognition. Picture this. You're standing in front of a burning house. Everyone else runs away. But you walk straight through those flames. And when you emerge on the other side, you're not singed, not scarred, not broken. You're shining. That house was your hardest test. Those flames were God's refining fire. And you, chosen one, you didn't just survive, you were transformed. But here's what nobody told you, what the enemy desperately hoped you'd never discover. There's a hidden reason why God allowed the hardest test specifically for you, a secret purpose that will be revealed later in this message that will leave you speechless about His plan for your life. If you know in your spirit this is for you, if these words are piercing through every doubt you've carried, type "I am chosen" in the comments right now. Declare it. Don't be shy about it. Your declaration isn't just for you, it's activating something in the heavenlies. Before we go deeper, I want to pause and thank every single one of you who has supported this message through super thanks. Your generosity means more than you know. You're not just donating, you're helping spread light to others who feel alone in their calling. Whether you give or not, I'm deeply grateful for your presence here, your support, your time, your attention. It all matters. And if this message resonates with your soul, go ahead and let that gratitude flow. Today, we're going to uncover the shocking truth about why you faced the hardest test, why it wasn't punishment, but preparation, why your pain had a purpose so profound that angels themselves watched in wonder as you chose faith over fear, praise over panic, trust over trauma. You thought you were just surviving. God knew you were being sculpted into something the world has never seen. Stay with me, chosen one. What comes next will change everything you thought you knew about your journey. How many nights did you lay awake wondering if God had turned His back on you? How many times did you cry out to heaven, only to hear your own echo bouncing off empty walls? How many mornings did you wake up asking yourself if this pain would ever end? Listen to me, dear chosen one. I need you to stop for a moment and really hear what I'm about to say. Because what you thought was abandonment was actually appointment. What felt like punishment was actually preparation. And what seemed like silence from heaven was actually the sound of God preparing something so magnificent for your life that He needed you refined in the furnace first. You've been through hell, haven't you? I'm not talking about some minor inconvenience or temporary setback. I'm talking about the kind of soul-crushing, faith-shaking, foundation-rattling trials that would have sent weaker people running for the hills. Maybe it was that phone call at 3 a.m. telling you your beloved spouse of 50 years was gone. Maybe it was sitting in that doctor's office hearing words like terminal or inoperable when you thought you had decades left. Maybe it was watching your retirement savings evaporate overnight, leaving you wondering how you'd survive on Social Security alone. Or perhaps it was something even more devastating, the betrayal of someone you trusted with your whole heart. After 40 years of friendship, they turned their back on you. After decades of faithful service, they pushed you aside like yesterday's newspaper. After a lifetime of giving your all, you were left standing there asking yourself, was any of it worth it? I want you to know something right now. Every tear you've shed in the darkness, God has collected in a bottle. Psalm 56:8 tells us, He keeps track of our sorrows. He has collected all our tears. Not one drop of your pain has been wasted. But here's where it gets profound. Chosen one. There was a man in the Bible who walked this exact same path. His name was Job. This wasn't some fictional character. This was a real man who lost everything in ways that would make your worst day look like a picnic. In a single day, he lost his children, his livestock, his servants, his entire livelihood. Then he lost his health, covered from head to toe with painful boils. His wife told him to curse God and die. His friends showed up to comfort him, but ended up condemning him instead. Can you imagine sitting in ashes, scraping your wounds with broken pottery, wondering if this is how your story ends? Job could have given up. He could have shaken his fist at heaven and walked away bitter. But instead, in the depths of his agony, he made a declaration that still echoes through eternity. Though he slay me, yet will I trust him. Think about that for a moment. Though he slay me, yet will I trust him. That's not the cry of a defeated man, that's the roar of a warrior who understands something the rest of the world doesn't. Job knew that his pain had a purpose. His suffering had a destination. His trial had a testimony attached to it. And that's exactly what's been happening in your life, chosen one. Every sleepless night you've endured, every prayer that seemed to bounce off the ceiling, every moment you felt forgotten, God was writing your testimony in tears. He was crafting your miracle in the furnace of affliction. He was preparing you for a breakthrough so powerful that when it manifests, people will know it could only have come from heaven. What if I told you that the tears on your pillow weren't wasted? What if they were heavenly ink writing your testimony? What if every night you thought God wasn't listening, He was actually positioning angels to orchestrate your comeback? What if the silence you interpreted as abandonment was actually the sound of heaven preparing something so beautiful for your life that it required this level of purification first? If that resonates with your spirit right now, if you feel that fire burning in your chest, lift your hand where you are and type Amen in the comments. Don't let this word pass you without owning it. Don't let this moment slip by without declaring that you believe God has been working even in your darkest hour. You see, the enemy wanted your pain to be your prison, but God intended your pain to be your platform. The devil thought your test would be your tombstone, but the Almighty knew your test would be your testimony. What was meant to bury you was actually planting you. What was designed to break you was actually making you. Think about Job again. At the end of his story, God didn't just restore what he had lost. He gave him double. Double the livestock, double the wealth, double the blessing. And here's what's beautiful. Job's latter days were greater than his former days. The man who lost everything became the man who gained everything, multiplied. But here's what most people miss about Job's story, and it's crucial that you understand this. Job's greatest victory wasn't what he received at the end. His greatest victory was what he discovered in the middle. In the midst of unimaginable loss, he discovered a faith that couldn't be shaken, a trust that couldn't be broken, a relationship with God that couldn't be severed. That's what's been happening to you, dear one. In your valley of fire, you've been discovering depths of faith you never knew you had. You've been developing spiritual muscles that can only be built under pressure. You've been cultivating a relationship with God that's been tested by fire and proven genuine. The world looked at your situation and wrote you off. They said you were finished, done, past your prime. But God looked at your faithfulness in the furnace and said, now that's someone I can trust with real authority. Now that's someone ready for supernatural breakthrough. Your test is almost over, chosen one. Can you feel it? Something is shifting in the spiritual realm. The very air around you is charged with possibility. What comes next will leave you speechless about the goodness of God. Listen carefully, chosen one, because what I'm about to reveal will answer the question that's been haunting your soul for years. Why were your trials harder than others? Why did it feel like your battles were heavier, your nights longer, your tears more bitter? Why did you watch others glide through life while you fought tooth and nail for every step forward? Here's the truth that will shatter everything you thought you knew about your pain. God doesn't give his hardest tests to the weak. He reserves them for those he's preparing for greatness. Think about Moses. Picture this man at 80 years old. 80, when most people are settling into their rockers, complaining about their aches and pains. But God looked at Moses and said, "Now you're ready." Not at 20, not at 40, at 80. For 40 years, Moses wandered in the wilderness, tending sheep, feeling forgotten, wondering if his life had any meaning left. 40 years of what seemed like silence from heaven. 40 years of watching the sun rise and set over endless sand, feeling like his purpose had died in the desert. But here's what Moses didn't understand, and here's what you need to grasp right now. Those 40 years weren't punishment, they were preparation. God wasn't ignoring Moses, he was forging him. Every scorching day in that wilderness was burning away the pride of Egypt. Every lonely night was teaching him dependence on God alone. Every moment he felt forgotten was actually God, positioning him for the greatest liberation in human history. You see, chosen one, the wilderness doesn't waste you, it refines you. Now let me ask you something that's going to cut deep. How many times have you looked at your life and whispered, "God, I'm too old for this"? How many times have you believed the lie that your best days are behind you? How many sleepless nights have you spent wondering if you missed your calling? Stop right there. Moses was called at 80. Your greatest chapters may begin now. The enemy wants you to believe that your season of struggle was meaningless, that your pain was pointless, that your waiting was wasted time. But that's the biggest lie hell ever told. Your test wasn't random, it was surgical. God looked at the assignment he had for you, the lives you're meant to touch, the breakthrough you're meant to bring, the legacy you're meant to leave, and he said, "This person needs to be refined at a level deeper than others can handle." Think about the caterpillar entering its cocoon. From the outside it looks like death. Dark, suffocating, isolating. The caterpillar can't see what's happening. It feels trapped, forgotten, buried alive. If that caterpillar could speak, it would cry out, "God, why have you abandoned me? Why am I stuck in this darkness while others are free?" But God sees what the caterpillar cannot. Inside that suffocating cocoon, the most magnificent transformation in nature is taking place. Every day of darkness is building wings. Every moment of isolation is crafting beauty. Every hour of feeling forgotten is preparing for flight. Your test was your cocoon. Chosen one. You felt trapped, but God was transforming you. You felt forgotten, but heaven was watching every moment. You felt like you were dying, but you were actually being reborn into something the world has never seen. The question isn't why your test was so hard. The question is, what is God preparing you to become that requires this level of refinement? Job went through hell and came out with double blessing. Joseph spent years in prison and emerged as the second most powerful man in Egypt. David hid in caves and rose to become the greatest king in Israel's history. Your pattern is no different. Your pain has a purpose so profound that when it's revealed, you'll fall to your knees in worship. But here's where it gets personal, and this might sting. While you were in your cocoon, while you were being refined in ways others couldn't comprehend, some people around you couldn't understand your journey. They saw your struggles and whispered, "Maybe they're not as blessed as we thought." They saw your tears and assumed God wasn't with you. They were wrong. Your fire didn't burn you, it branded you with heaven's mark. Right now, at this very moment, you carry an anointing that can only come through divine fire. You have a depth that can only be forged in the furnace of affliction. You possess a strength that can only be built through supernatural testing. The same God who brought Moses out of 40 years of preparation is about to bring you into 40 years of purpose. The same God who transformed a caterpillar in the darkness of its cocoon is about to reveal the wings he's been crafting in you. Your greatest test is behind you. Your greatest triumph is ahead of you. But there's something else you need to know about this divine pattern, something that will change how you see not just your past, but your future. The reason God allowed your hardest test goes deeper than you've ever imagined. But listen closely, chosen one, Because there's something the world will never tell you about passing tests. There are two ways to pass through fireman's way and God's way, and the difference between them determines not just your survival, but your destiny. Man's way says take the shortcut, compromise your values, cut corners, manipulate the system, get revenge on those who hurt you. Let bitterness become your fuel. Man's way says curse God when life gets hard, blame him for your pain, and walk away when faith gets difficult. But you chose differently. When betrayal cut you to the bone, you didn't plot revenge. When sickness invaded your body, you didn't curse heaven. When financial ruin knocked at your door, you didn't abandon your faith. When everyone around you said give up, you kept moving forward. When the world screamed God has forgotten you, you whispered back, I trust you anyway. That's not man's way, that's God's way. And that choice, that sacred choice, changed everything. Do you remember David standing in that valley, staring at a 9-foot giant? Every soldier in Israel's army saw impossible odds. They calculated the size of Goliath's spear, 18 pounds of iron. They measured his height, over 9 feet tall. They counted his years of experience, decades of warfare. Man's way said, run, hide, surrender. But David saw something different. You come against me with sword and spear and javelin, but I come against you in the name of the Lord Almighty. 1 Samuel 17:45. David didn't pass that test by avoiding the giant. He passed by running toward it with nothing but a sling, 5 smooth stones, and unshakable faith. And here's what shook me to my core when I studied this passage. David's victory over Goliath wasn't the end of his story. It was the doorway to his kingship. That giant wasn't sent to destroy David. It was sent to reveal the king that was already inside him. Your Goliath was that betrayal that left you questioning everyone you trusted. Your Goliath was that illness that made you wonder if your body would ever feel strong again. Your Goliath was that financial collapse that forced you to choose between pride and provision. Your Goliath was that loss that shattered your heart into pieces you thought could never be put back together. But you stood. When everyone expected you to fall, you stood. When logic demanded you quit, you stood. When your own emotions begged you to give up, you stood. And that moment, that sacred moment when you chose to stand, was the moment heaven recognized the royalty within you. Because here's the revelation that's going to transform how you see your entire journey. You didn't survive your test to just keep breathing. You survived to start reigning. Every tear you shed in secret was a crown jewel being polished. Every prayer you whispered in desperation was a decree being written in the courts of heaven. Every step you took when your legs felt like giving out was a step toward a throne that has your name engraved on it. The enemy thought your test would break you. God knew it would make you. The world thought your pain would silence you. Heaven knew it would give you a voice that could shake nations. Your critics thought your struggles would humble you into obscurity. Your Creator knew they would elevate you into authority. Right now, at this very moment, there's a throne of purpose waiting for you. Not a literal throne made of gold and jewels, but something far more powerful, a position of influence, a platform of impact, a calling so profound that it will touch lives you haven't even met yet. You see, when you pass God's way, you don't just survive the storm, you learn to command it. You don't just endure the fire, you discover you're fireproof. You don't just outlast the giant, you realize you were born to slay giants. That's why your test was so brutal. That's why it lasted so long. That's why it felt like it would never end. God wasn't trying to break you down. He was building you up to handle the weight of your own greatness. He wasn't punishing you. He was preparing you for a level of blessing that would crush an unprepared spirit. Think about it. Would you trust someone who had never been tested with your most precious possessions? Would you give authority to someone who crumbled at the first sign of pressure? Would you entrust a kingdom to someone who ran from their own giants? God wouldn't either. That's why he allowed the hardest test for his chosen ones. Not because he enjoys watching you suffer, but because he's preparing you to reign. Not because he wants to hurt you, but because he wants to crown you. Every king has a coronation story. Every queen has a tale of trials that led to triumph. Your test wasn't just a random act of suffering, it was your coronation process. And now, chosen one, the ceremony is complete. If you know in your spirit that you pass not man's way, but God's way, if you feel the weight of that crown settling on your head right now, drop 777 into the comments. That number isn't just digits on a screen. It's the symbol of divine completion, of spiritual victory, of a test passed and a crown earned. But understand this, your victory isn't just personal, it's prophetic, because the world is watching what happens next. Chosen one, do you feel that shift happening right now? That electricity in the air? That's not coincidence, that's the sound of heaven's floodgates creaking open above your life. Listen to me carefully. What you've endured, what you've survived, what you've conquered, it wasn't random suffering, it was divine preparation. And now, right now, God is about to pour out rewards so abundant that Malachi 3:10 will become your living reality. Test me in this, says the Lord Almighty, and see if I will not throw open the floodgates of heaven and pour out so much blessing that there will not be room enough to store it. But here's what most people don't understand about divine reward. It's not just about money filling your bank account. It's about peace that doesn't make sense when storms rage around you. It's about joy that outlives every sorrow, strength that multiplies when your body says quit, and favor that follows you into rooms you never thought you'd enter. Job lost everything, his children, his wealth, his health. Friends called him cursed. His wife told him to curse God and die. But when God restored him, Job received double everything he had lost. Double the livestock, double the wealth, double the honor. The latter part of Job's life was more blessed than the beginning. That's what happens when you pass God's hardest test the right way. Joseph spent 13 years in slavery and prison for a crime he didn't commit. 13 years. That's longer than some of you have been waiting for your breakthrough. But in one day, listen to me, in one single day, God moved him from the prison cell to Pharaoh's palace. From forgotten prisoner to second in command of the most powerful nation on earth. Why am I telling you this? Because your prison season is ending, chosen one. Your waiting is about to become winning. I know some of you watching this are in your golden years, thinking your best days are behind you. You've faced divorce, buried dreams, watched children make choices that broke your heart. You've sat at hospital bedsides, signed papers you never thought you'd sign, and wondered if God forgot your address. But let me shock you with this truth. Some of your greatest victories are still ahead of you. Sarah was 90 years old when God gave her Isaac. Moses was 80 when he received his burning bush commission. Anna was 84 when she held baby Jesus in the temple. Your age isn't your limitation. It's your qualification for a miracle that only comes with seasoned faith. I've watched seniors remarry and find love deeper than their youth ever knew. I've seen grandparents become the healing bridge between broken families, their prayers becoming the foundation for generational breakthrough. I've witnessed 70-year-olds launch ministries that touch thousands, their testimonies carrying weight that only comes from walking through fire and coming out refined. But here's the mystery that's been hidden from you, the single reason why only chosen ones face the hardest tests, and I promise I'll reveal this shocking truth before this message ends. It will change everything you thought you knew about your purpose. Your test was never about breaking you. Stop believing that lie right now. Your test was God's audition for your next assignment. Think about it. Would you trust someone who's never been through anything to counsel someone in crisis? Would you send someone who's never faced rejection to encourage the brokenhearted? Would you give spiritual authority to someone who's never wrestled with doubt? God doesn't promote the pampered. He elevates the proven. Every tear you shed in secret was seen. Every prayer you whispered when your voice was too weak to speak aloud was heard. Every moment you chose to worship when you wanted to give up was recorded in heaven's archives. Your faithfulness in the fire has qualified you for assignments that require supernatural strength. The enemy thought he was destroying you, but God was actually developing you. What felt like punishment was preparation. What looked like setback was setup. What seemed like delay was divine strategy. Right now, as I'm speaking these words, the Holy Spirit is confirming this truth in your spirit. You're feeling it, aren't you? That stirring, that knowing, that sense that everything is about to shift. Your floodgates moment is here. But listen carefully, this isn't just about receiving blessing. This is about becoming a conduit of blessing. God didn't preserve you through the fire so you could sit comfortably in your victory. He preserved you to become a lighthouse for others still navigating their storms. Your story of overcoming becomes someone else's hope to keep going. Your testimony of God's faithfulness becomes the bridge someone else walks across from doubt to faith. Your scars become someone else's stars, pointing them toward the God who heals, restores, and makes all things new. The abundance flowing into your life isn't just for your comfort, it's for your commission. Every door that opens, every relationship that's restored, every financial breakthrough, every health improvement, it's all preparation for you to become God's ambassador of hope to a generation that's forgotten what divine faithfulness looks like. So here's my question for you, chosen one. Are you ready to stop just surviving and start thriving? Are you ready to move from enduring to enjoying, from struggling to soaring? Because what I'm about to reveal next will expose the hidden reason why God chose you specifically for the hardest test, and it will leave you absolutely speechless about the magnitude of what He's prepared for your life. Lean in, chosen one. This is the moment heaven wanted you to hear. What I'm about to reveal will explain every sleepless night, every unanswered prayer, every moment you felt abandoned by the very God you served. You've been asking the wrong question. You've been asking, why me, God? Why did I have to suffer when others lived in ease? But the real question, the one that will shatter your understanding of your journey, is this: why did God trust you with the hardest test? Because here's the truth the enemy never wanted you to discover. God doesn't give His nuclear-level tests to weaklings. He doesn't hand His most devastating trials to quitters. He reserves His hardest tests for His chosen generals, those destined to carry light into the darkest corners of this broken world. You weren't punished, dear one. You were selected. Think about it. When the military needs to identify their elite forces, do they send them to a resort to number? They send them through hell. They break them down and build them back up, because only those who can withstand the pressure can handle the mission. God looked across the landscape of humanity and said, that one, that soul right there can handle what's coming. That one has the spiritual DNA to survive what would destroy others. The enemy wasn't attacking your past. He was terrified of your future. Satan saw what God placed inside you, a calling so powerful, a destiny so threatening to his kingdom, that he threw everything he had at you. Every betrayal, every loss, every moment of despair was his desperate attempt to stop what God was preparing you to become. But here's what makes your story biblical, what makes it legendary. You survived what was meant to eliminate you. Look at Joseph, 17 years old, favored by his father, carrying dreams that seemed impossible. His own brothers, his own blood, threw him into a pit and sold him into slavery. Genesis 37-28 tells us they sold him for 20 pieces of silver. 20 pieces. That's what his family thought he was worth. Imagine the psychological devastation. Imagine the nights in that Egyptian prison, wondering if God had forgotten him. Imagine the years of silence when heaven seemed closed, when dreams felt like cruel jokes. But here's the revelation that changes everything. Betrayal wasn't punishment, it was positioning. Every rejection was a redirection. Every closed door was God moving Joseph away from small thinking and toward palace-level authority. That pit wasn't his grave, it was his launching pad. That prison wasn't his end, it was his training ground. Joseph didn't know it, but while he was being broken down in Egypt, famine was coming to the known world. While he was learning to interpret dreams in prison, nations would soon need his wisdom to survive. While he felt forgotten by God, God was actually positioning him to save millions of lives. So with you, chosen one, you were hidden, refined, Positioned. While you were crying in your wilderness, God was preparing your palace. While you were learning to trust Him in the dark, He was arranging divine connections for your future. While you felt abandoned, Heaven was actually accelerating your preparation for a calling so significant that it required this level of testing. You think you were just surviving heartbreak. God knew you were developing the emotional strength to heal broken hearts. You think you were just enduring financial struggle. God knew you were learning to trust Him for provision so you could teach others to do the same. You think you were just getting through betrayal. God knew you were developing the wisdom to discern hearts and the grace to forgive the unforgivable. Every tear you shed was an investment in someone else's breakthrough. Every prayer you whispered in desperation was training for the intercession you'll make for others. Every time you chose faith over fear, you were building the spiritual muscle to carry others who are too weak to carry themselves. But here's the most shocking revelation of all. Heaven's hardest test is earth's clearest confirmation you are chosen. The intensity of your trial was directly proportional to the magnitude of your calling. God doesn't waste nuclear-level preparation on ordinary assignments. He doesn't put you through fire if He's only planning to use you for small things. The harder the test, the greater the testimony. The deeper the pit, the higher the palace. The longer the night, the more glorious the dawn. Right now, there are people praying for breakthrough who don't even know your name yet. There are families on the verge of collapse who need the wisdom you gained in your darkest hour. There are dreams dying in human hearts that only someone who survived what you survived can resurrect. Your test wasn't random. It was specifically designed, carefully calibrated, divinely orchestrated to forge you into the weapon God needs for the battles ahead. You passed the test that others failed. You stood when others fell. You praised when others cursed. You trusted when others doubted. You forgave when others harbored bitterness. And because you passed God's way with integrity, with faith, with your heart still tender toward Him, Heaven is about to demonstrate why He put you through this. If this is your confirmation, if every word is resonating in your spirit like thunder, don't stay silent. This is your moment to declare victory over the lies that told you that you failed. Say it out loud. Type it in the comments. I passed. Because you did. And what comes next will prove that every moment of pain was worth every second of your purpose. You passed. But then came the silence. Have you noticed, after your victory, after you emerged from that furnace of testing, it felt strangely quiet. The battlefield of your life suddenly went still. No more screaming winds of adversity. No more pounding rain of persecution. No more thunder of opposition. Just silence. And in that silence, something twisted in your gut. A whisper of doubt crept in. Did I really pass? If God is so pleased with me, why can't I hear Him anymore? Listen to me, chosen one. That silence after your storm was not abandonment. It was not God turning His back on you. It was not evidence that you failed some hidden part of the test. That silence was incubation. Picture a battlefield after the war has ended. Smoke still rises from the scorched earth. The air hangs heavy with the aftermath of conflict. Everything appears devastated, empty, lifeless. But beneath that charred ground, something miraculous is happening. Seeds that were buried by the explosions are beginning to sprout. New life is stirring in what looks like a wasteland. That's your life right now. You see, when King David finally defeated Goliath, the Bible doesn't tell us about a parade that immediately followed. Scripture says in 1 Samuel 17:57, as soon as David returned from striking down the Philistine, Abner took him and brought him before Saul. David went from the battlefield to standing before authority, from victory to positioning. The silence wasn't God leaving David, it was God positioning David. Why would God let you win and then hide His voice? Here's the shocking truth nobody wants to tell you. God goes quiet when He's preparing to go loud. Think about this. When a woman is pregnant, what happens in those early weeks? The world can't see the miracle taking form. There are no obvious signs of the life growing within. To the outside observer, nothing appears to be happening. But inside, cells are dividing, organs are forming, a heartbeat is beginning. The silence in your life isn't empty space, it's sacred space. God is planting what you couldn't yet see, growing what you're not yet ready to handle, preparing what your current capacity couldn't contain. But here's where it gets dangerous. Here's where the enemy strikes hardest. In the silence he whispers, "See? You thought you were special. You thought you passed some great test. But look around. Where's your reward? Where's your breakthrough? Where's your promised land?" Stop listening to that lie. Ecclesiastes 3:1 declares, "To everything there is a season, and a time to every purpose under heaven." You're not in the season of testing anymore. You're not in the season of survival. You're in the season of preparation. And preparation always looks like waiting to those who don't understand God's timing. Moses spent 40 years in the wilderness before God called him from a burning bush. Was God absent for those 40 years? Or was he preparing Moses for the moment when he would need unshakable faith to demand that Pharaoh let his people go? Joseph spent years in prison after interpreting dreams correctly. Was God punishing Joseph's faithfulness, or was he positioning Joseph to save nations from famine? Jesus himself retreated into the wilderness for 40 days after his baptism before beginning his ministry. Even the Son of God needed a season of silence before the storm of his calling. The silence wasn't God leaving them. The silence was God positioning them. Right now, in your silence, heaven is moving in ways you cannot perceive. Angels are being dispatched. Doors are being unlocked. Hearts are being prepared to receive you. Resources are being aligned to support you. Opposition is being removed from your path. You can't see it yet because it's happening in the spiritual realm, but your breakthrough isn't delayed. It's being orchestrated with precision that would stagger your mind if you could comprehend it. But here's what will determine everything. What are you doing in the silence? Are you using this sacred pause to draw closer to God, or are you letting doubt create distance? Are you preparing for what's coming, or are you questioning if anything is coming at all? Isaiah 40:31 promises, "But those who wait upon the Lord shall renew their strength. They shall mount up with wings like eagles. They shall run and not be weary. They shall walk and not faint." Wait. That word doesn't mean sitting passively. In Hebrew, it means to bind together, to collect strength, to gather power. The silence is your time to bind yourself to God's purposes, to collect spiritual strength for what's ahead, to gather the power you'll need for your next assignment. Because something is coming, chosen one, something so significant that it required this season of preparation. Something so powerful that God needed to make sure you were ready before he released it. The silence before your storm isn't the calm of defeat. It's the calm of divine preparation. It's the hushed anticipation of heaven getting ready to move on your behalf in ways that will leave the world speechless. But the question that will determine your destiny is this: will you trust God in the silence the same way you trusted him in the storm? Because what happens next will test a different kind of faith entirely. Listen to me carefully, chosen one. I'm about to tell you something that will revolutionize how you see every painful moment you've endured, every scar on your body, every wrinkle on your face, every sleepless night you've wrestled through. That's not decay. That's not evidence of a life falling apart. That's your crown. Heaven calls it glory. You see, the world looks at you and sees age. They see limitation. They see someone whose best days are behind them. But God sees a warrior who's been through battles that would have destroyed lesser souls. He sees someone who's earned their stripes in the fire of real life. Can I ask you something personal? What's the deepest wound you carry? The one that still makes you wince when you remember it? The betrayal that blindsided you? The loss that nearly broke you? The rejection that made you question your worth? I want you to hold that pain for a moment. Feel it, because what I'm about to share will transform how you see that very wound forever. Isaiah 61:3 speaks of God giving us a crown of beauty for ashes. Not just beauty despite the ashes, beauty from the ashes. Your pain wasn't wasted. It was raw material for something magnificent. Think about this. Every Medal of Honor comes from a battlefield. Every Purple Heart represents blood shed in service. Your scars, they're your medals, chosen one. They're proof that you didn't run when life got hard. You stood your ground when others fled. But here's where it gets supernatural. God doesn't just heal your wounds, He weaponizes them. The very thing that hurt you most will become the tool you'll use to heal others. That broken heart that nearly destroyed you, it's going to be the bridge that reaches another broken soul. That financial devastation you survived, it's going to become the wisdom that guides someone else through their valley. Your scars are not your shame, they're your signature. Let me paint you a picture. Imagine two people walk into a room where someone is drowning in grief. The first person has lived a charmed life, no real pain, no deep wounds. They offer sympathy, but their words feel hollow, don't they? Now the second person walks in. This one bears scars. This one has walked through the fire. When they speak, every word carries weight, because it's been tested in the furnace of real experience. Which voice do you think penetrates deeper? Which touch brings more healing? You see, God knew what He was doing when He allowed your hardest test. He wasn't punishing you, He was preparing you. Every tear you shed was an investment in someone else's breakthrough. Every prayer you whispered in desperation was training for the ministry you're about to step into. Here's the shocking truth the enemy doesn't want you to know. Hell wanted your scars to shame you. Satan planned for your wounds to silence you, to make you hide in the shadows, to convince you that broken people can't be used by God. But heaven turned them into your signature. Your limp is now your testimony. Your struggle is now your strength. Your breakdown became your breakthrough. And now, chosen one, you carry something the untested could never possess. Authentic authority, born from authentic agony. Think about Jesus Himself. Even after His resurrection, what did He show Thomas? His scars. The wounds didn't disappear, they became His identification. The proof of His victory wasn't the absence of pain, but the transformation of it. You want to know why you're still here? Why you survived when others didn't? Why you made it through tests that should have destroyed you? Because God has people in your future who need what only you can give them. Your pain has a purpose, and that purpose has a name. It's called your ministry. Every person who's going to be touched by your story is counting on you to embrace your scars, not hide them. They need to see that survival is possible, that healing is real, that God specializes in taking the worst the enemy can dish out and turning it into weapons of warfare. The widow who lost her husband of 50 years. She needs to hear from someone who knows that kind of emptiness. The man facing his final diagnosis, he needs to see someone who's stared death in the face and found peace. The family torn apart by addiction, they need wisdom that only comes from walking that dark road. Your scars are your credentials. They're your license to speak into situations that would make others uncomfortable. They're your authorization to go where smooth-talking motivational speakers could never tread. They're your passport into the broken places where real healing happens. But here's the critical question. Will you let your wounds define you, or will you let them refine you into the weapon God intended you to be? Because right now, at this very moment, there's a divine shift happening. God is taking every hurt, every disappointment, every moment you thought would be your end, and He's forging them into instruments of His glory. The crown of scars you wear isn't a mark of defeat. It's a badge of honor that says you survived hell's worst and came out shining with heaven's best. But this transformation isn't automatic. It requires a choice to stop hiding your story and start sharing it. A choice to stop seeing your pain as disqualification and start seeing it as your divine appointment. Are you ready to let God turn your mess into your message? Because what He's about to do through your scars will leave the enemy regretting he ever touched you in the first place. Chosen one, I need you to understand something that will revolutionize how you see every heartbreak, every betrayal, every moment when life stripped you bare and left you wondering if God had forgotten your name. What if I told you that your greatest loss was actually your greatest investment? What if the years you thought were wasted were actually the foundation for a legacy that will outlive you by generations? What if God wasn't taking from you, He was positioning you? Listen to me carefully. In the ancient world, when a master craftsman wanted to create the most valuable artwork, he didn't start with perfect materials. He took broken pieces, shattered fragments, things others had thrown away as worthless. And from those ruins, he created masterpieces that were worth more than anything that had never been broken. That's you, dear one. That's your story. Think about Job. This man lost everything in a single day: his children, his wealth, his health, his reputation. Friends turned into accusers. His own wife told him to curse God and die. For months, he sat in ashes, scraping his sores with broken pottery, wondering why the God he served had allowed such devastation. But here's what Job couldn't see in his darkest hour. God wasn't subtracting from his life, He was multiplying it. Job 42:10 tells us the stunning truth. The Lord restored his fortunes and gave him twice as much as he had before. Not just restoration, multiplication. His latter days were more blessed than his beginning. But it gets deeper than that, chosen one. Job's story didn't end with personal blessing. His experience became the foundation that millions would build their faith upon. His loss became humanity's gain. His tears became the very words that comfort the broken-hearted 4,000 years later. Your pain isn't punishment, it's preparation for a legacy you can't even imagine. Now look at Joseph. 17 years old when his brothers threw him into a pit and sold him into slavery. Imagine the confusion, the betrayal, the nights he must have cried himself to sleep, wondering why God allowed this to happen to someone who only wanted to serve him faithfully. 13 years of slavery and false imprisonment. 13 years of what looked like wasted time. His family moved on without him. Life continued as if he never existed. But God was writing a different story. Genesis 45:8 reveals the divine plot twist. It was not you who sent me here, but God. He made me father to Pharaoh, lord of his entire household and ruler of all Egypt. Joseph's betrayal wasn't the end of his story, it was the beginning of his destiny. Those 13 years weren't lost years, they were investment years. God was preparing him to save not just his family, but entire nations from famine. His loss became the world's gain. Do you see the pattern, chosen one? God takes what looks like subtraction and reveals it as multiplication disguised. Now let me speak directly to your heart. You've lived through decades of what felt like loss. Maybe it was a marriage that ended when you thought it would last forever. Maybe it was children who walked away when you gave them everything. Maybe it was dreams that died, careers that crumbled, health that failed, friends who disappeared when times got tough. You've spent nights staring at old photographs, wondering where it all went wrong. You've questioned whether your life had any meaning, whether the years you invested in others were just wasted time. You felt like that broken family photo, torn, faded, pieces missing. But what if I told you that God is about to reveal something that will take your breath away? What if those years you thought were wasted were actually the exact preparation needed for what He's about to do through you? What if every tear you shed was watering the ground for a harvest you couldn't see? What if every loss was actually positioning you to gain something infinitely more valuable? Here's the revelation that's going to shatter your understanding. Your loss wasn't subtraction, it was multiplication disguised. Those grandchildren who seem distant, your prayers and love laid a foundation in their hearts that's about to bear fruit. Those years of financial struggle, they built a character in you that money could never buy, and that character is about to become the inheritance your family treasures most. That health battle you fought, it gave you a testimony of God's faithfulness that will heal hearts you'll never meet. You thought you were losing. God knew you were gaining. You thought you were being forgotten. God knew you were being positioned. You thought your best years were behind you. God knows your most impactful years are ahead. The enemy convinced you that your pain was pointless, But God is about to show you that your pain was purposeful, every single moment of it. That broken family photo in your heart, God isn't just going to restore it, He's going to transform it into something more beautiful than it ever was before. Those missing pieces, they're coming back. Those faded memories, they're about to be renewed. Those torn relationships, they're about to be mended with golden threads that make them stronger than they ever were. But here's the urgent truth you need to grasp right now. This divine reversal isn't automatic. It requires your participation. The question burning in heaven right now is this: will you let God turn your test into a testimony, your mess into a message, your trial into a triumph? Because, chosen one, what happens next isn't just about you anymore. It's about everyone who's watching your story unfold, wondering if God still does miracles, if faith still works, if hope is still worth holding on to. Your comeback isn't just for you, it's for them. Have you ever felt like someone was watching, even when no one was there? That sudden awareness that made you turn around in an empty room. That inexplicable sense that unseen eyes were witnessing your most private moments of struggle. That wasn't paranoia, chosen one. That was witness. Right now, as you're listening to these words, there's something happening that your natural eyes cannot see. The air around you is thick with the presence of those who have gone before. Abraham is leaning forward. Moses is nodding with recognition. David is gripping his shepherd's staff, remembering his own valley moments. They're all watching you. But why? Why would heaven turn its attention to your story when cosmic events demand their focus? Because your test wasn't ordinary. Your struggle wasn't common. Your victory wasn't small. Listen to what the word declares in Hebrews 12:1. We are surrounded by so great a cloud of witnesses. Not were surrounded, not will be surrounded, are surrounded. Present tense, right now, this very second. These witnesses aren't passive observers lounging in heavenly grandstands. They're invested, they're engaged. They understand the weight of what you carried because they carried it too. They know the crushing pressure of walking alone with God when everyone else had an opinion about your path. Think about it. When was the last time you felt truly seen? When was the last time someone witnessed your struggle without trying to fix it, judge it, or dismiss it? Most people in your life saw your pain and either ran from it or tried to minimize it with empty platitudes. But heaven watched every sleepless night. Every tear that fell when you thought no one cared. Every moment you whispered, God, I can't do this anymore, into your pillow at 3 a.m. They saw it all, and they stayed. You know what that tells me about you? Your test was so significant that it required witnesses. Heaven assembled a gallery to watch your victory unfold, because they knew something the enemy didn't. You were never going to quit. When Job's world collapsed, the witnesses watched. When Abraham climbed Mount Moriah with Isaac, they watched. When Jesus hung on that cross, they watched. And when you walked through your darkest valley, when you faced your greatest fear, when you chose faith over doubt for the 1000th time, they watched that too. But here's what will blow your mind. Their victories are applauding yours. Every time Abraham chose to trust God's promise when it seemed impossible, he was cheering for your faith. Every time David faced another giant, he was strengthening your courage. Every time Moses led a rebellious people through the wilderness, he was preparing you to lead others through their own promised land. Your test created an echo in heaven. Your perseverance sent shockwaves through eternity. Your refusal to give up when giving up would have been understandable. That moment registered on heaven's seismograph. You think you were fighting alone. You had the greatest cheerleading section in the universe watching you refuse to bow, refuse to break, refuse to believe the lie that God had forgotten your name. But there's something deeper happening here that will leave you speechless when you understand it. There's a reason heaven had to watch you specifically, not just anyone, you. Your name was called in the heavenly council. Your test was marked priority viewing. Your victory was scheduled on heaven's calendar. Why would God require witnesses for your story? Because some tests are so intense, so crucial to His kingdom purposes, that they need documentation, they need proof, they need evidence that in this generation, In this time, in this culture that's forgotten, His power God still raises warriors. Think about the implications of that. The God who spoke galaxies into existence, who holds the oceans in His palm, who commands the winds and the waves, that God said, "Watch this one, record this victory, archive this testimony, because the world needs to see what I can do through someone who won't quit on me." Your breakdown wasn't a breakdown. It was a breakthrough being witnessed by eternity. Your crisis wasn't a crisis. It was a coronation ceremony where heaven watched you be crowned as an overcomer. Every giant you faced had an audience. Every mountain you moved had spectators. Every demon you defeated had witnesses who could testify to the power of God working through human weakness made strong. You weren't just surviving for yourself. You were demonstrating for generations yet unborn that God's people don't stay down. You were proving to a watching world that faith isn't just a Sunday sentiment. It's a daily decision to trust God when trust makes no sense. Your test was never private. Heaven archived it as proof that God still raises warriors in our time. Your story became evidence in the cosmic courtroom that the enemy's accusations against God's people are lies. When Satan whispered, "They'll all abandon you when it gets hard," God pointed to you and said, "Watch this." If you know heaven was watching your victory, if you can feel the weight of their witness right now, declare it boldly: "I am seen, I am chosen." Because here's what happens next. Those same witnesses who watched your test are about to watch your triumph. They witnessed your faithfulness in the fire, and now they're going to witness your restoration, your elevation, your breakthrough into the promises God has been preparing. But the question that will determine everything that follows is this. Now that you know heaven was watching, now that you understand your test had cosmic significance, what are you going to do with the victory they witnessed? Chosen one, I need you to hear this with every fiber of your being. Don't you dare mistake the end of a test for the end of your calling. You think because you survived the fire, because you conquered the mountain, because you endured the storm, you think that was your finale. That was your graduation ceremony, not your retirement party. Listen to me carefully. The enemy wants you to believe that surviving your hardest test means you can now coast into some spiritual sunset. He wants you to think your fighting days are over, that you've earned the right to sit on the sidelines and watch others carry the torch. That's the most dangerous lie you could ever believe. Why? Because your greatest assignment may be unfolding right now. Think about David, the boy who faced Goliath with nothing but a sling and 5 smooth stones. The world saw a giant fall and thought, what a beautiful ending to a shepherd boy's story. But God saw a coronation ceremony. That victory wasn't David's retirement, it was his recruitment into royalty. The giant was just the doorway to his destiny as king. Your Goliath wasn't your finish line, it was your launching pad. You survived betrayal. That wasn't the end, that's preparation for leading others through treachery. You conquered financial ruin. That's not so you can hoard wealth. That's so you can guide others out of poverty. You walked through the valley of death and emerged alive. That's not for your own comfort. That's so you can light the way for others lost in darkness. Here's what's happening right now in the spiritual realm. Heaven is watching a generation of seniors who think their best days are behind them. The devil has convinced them that 65 means decline, that 70 means irrelevance, that 80 means obsolescence. But God is laughing at that lie because He's been saving His most powerful weapons for last. Moses didn't get his assignment until he was 80 years old. 80! When the world said he was too old to matter, God said he was finally ready to split seas and lead nations. Abraham didn't receive his greatest promise until he was 100 years old. When society wrote him off, heaven wrote his name in the stars. What if I told you that everything you've been through, every heartbreak, every financial struggle, every health scare, every loss, what if all of that was God preparing you for an assignment so significant that He needed someone with your exact combination of wisdom, experience, and tested faith? You think your aching joints disqualify you? Moses had speech problems. You think your limited resources make you useless? The widow had only a jar of oil. You think your age makes you irrelevant? Sarah laughed at God's promise because she thought she was too old to birth nations. But here's the shocking truth that will shake you to your core. While you've been sitting there thinking your season is over, God has been positioning you for your greatest impact. While you've been apologizing for your age, He's been celebrating your readiness. While you've been mourning what you've lost, He's been preparing to show you what you're about to gain. The Israelites thought crossing the Red Sea was their miracle moment. They celebrated on the shore, danced in victory, praised God for their deliverance. But that crossing wasn't their destination, it was their departure point. The real journey, the nation building, the promise receiving, the legacy creating, all of that came after the miracle. Your Red Sea moment has passed. Now comes the real adventure. You want to know why your test was so intense? Why God allowed you to face trials that would have destroyed weaker souls? Because He's been forging you into a weapon of mass blessing. He's been sculpting you into a force that can reshape families, communities, and generations. But here's what breaks my heart. I see so many of you sitting in your recliners, convinced your story is over, when God is calling you to the stage for your greatest performance. I see you apologizing for your limitations when heaven is applauding your qualifications. I see you planning your exit when God is orchestrating your entrance. The enemy wants you sedated. He wants you convinced that your time has passed. He wants you believing that young people have all the energy, all the vision, all the impact. But God wants you awakened to this truth. You have something they don't have. You have tested faith. You have proven loyalty. You have battle-scarred wisdom that can only come from surviving what you've survived. And if you're still breathing, you're still battling. This isn't about running marathons or climbing mountains. This isn't about competing with 20-somethings or pretending you're decades younger. This is about recognizing that God has been saving His secret weapons for the final act of human history. Your next victory won't just change your life, it will shake nations. The question isn't whether God still has plans for you. The question is whether you'll answer when He calls. Will you rise from that chair of retirement and step into your chamber of deployment? Will you stop mourning your past and start marching toward your purpose? Because, chosen one, the fire you walked through wasn't meant to end you. It was meant to equip you for what comes next. Listen to me, chosen one. Your test wasn't just about you. While you were crying in that dark room, while you were questioning why God allowed such pain, while you felt like you were dying inside, something magnificent was happening in the spiritual realm. Every tear that fell from your face was watering ground that your grandchildren will harvest from. Every prayer you whispered through gritted teeth was unlocking doors that have been sealed for generations. You think your suffering was personal. You think your pain was isolated. You were carrying the weight of an entire bloodline on your shoulders. You were the chosen one, the generational curse breaker. Think about this for a moment. Why you? Why were you the one who had to endure what others couldn't even imagine? Because God looked down through time and saw your great-grandchildren, your lineage, your legacy, and He said, this one has the strength to break what has been binding my people for decades. Deuteronomy 28:2 declares, all these blessings will come on you and accompany you if you obey the Lord your God. But here's what most people miss. Those blessings don't just fall on you. They chase down your children, your children's children, and every generation that follows. Your grandmother struggled with poverty. Your mother battled depression. Your father carried anger he couldn't explain. Generation after generation, the same patterns, the same bondages, the same spiritual chains. But then God said, enough, and He chose you. Picture this. You're standing in a vast hallway lined with doors, hundreds of them stretching as far as the eye can see. Each door represents an opportunity, a blessing, a breakthrough that your family line has never been able to access. For decades, for generations, these doors have remained locked. Your ancestors stood before them, rattled the handles, beat their fists against the wood, but they wouldn't budge. But You carry something they didn't have. You carry keys forged in the fire of your suffering. Every sleepless night you endured became a key. Every moment you chose faith over fear became a key. Every time you said, "God, I trust you," when everything in you wanted to quit, that became a key. Your test wasn't breaking you down. It was building you up into a master key holder. And now, right now, as you're listening to these words, those doors are beginning to creak open. Do you hear that sound? That's the sound of generational poverty losing its grip on your family name. That's the sound of depression and anxiety being evicted from your bloodline. That's the sound of doors that your great-great-grandmother prayed would open one day, finally swinging wide, because you paid the price to unlock them. Your children won't have to fight the battles you fought. Your grandchildren won't carry the shame you carried. The dysfunction stops with you. The addiction stops with you. The financial struggle stops with you. The broken relationships stop with you. But here's what will blow your mind. Every generational curse that tried to break you became the very brick God used to build a bridge for them. That addiction that ran through your family for 3 generations. God turned your recovery into a bridge of freedom for your children. That poverty mindset that kept your parents trapped. God turned your breakthrough into a bridge of abundance for your grandchildren. That spirit of fear that haunted your ancestors. God turned your courage into a bridge of boldness for generations yet to come. You weren't just surviving your test. You were architecting their victory. Can you see it now? Can you see your great-granddaughter walking across the bridge you built with your tears? Can you see your grandson stepping through doors you unlocked with your faith? Can you see your daughter living in freedom because you chose to stay and fight instead of running away? This is why the test was so hard. This is why the fire was so hot. This is why the valley was so deep. Because the breakthrough had to be big enough not just for you, but for everyone who shares your DNA. Your test was the key. Your endurance was the lock. Now doors swing wide not just for you, but for every generation that follows. The enemy fought you so hard because he knew what was at stake. He knew that if you passed this test, if you made it through that fire, if you chose faith over fear, he would lose his grip on your entire family tree. That's why the attack was so vicious. That's why the pain was so deep. That's why you felt like you were fighting for your very life. Because you were. You were fighting for your daughter's destiny. You were fighting for your son's freedom. You were fighting for your grandchildren's inheritance. You were fighting for people who aren't even born yet. And you won. Every door that was locked for your parents is now open for your children. Every opportunity that was denied to your grandparents is now available to your grandchildren. Every blessing that skipped your generation is now flowing like a river to the generations that follow. Your pain purchased their freedom. Your tears watered their harvest. Your faithfulness in the darkness lit the path for their steps in the light. But here's the question that will determine everything. Will you step into the fullness of what you've unlocked? Will you walk through those doors with the confidence of someone who knows they've already won? Will you live like the generational curse breaker you've proven yourself to be? Because the doors are open, chosen one. The keys are in your hand, and your legacy is waiting for you to step into it, chosen one. As we reach the end of this sacred journey together, I need you to remember 3 unshakable truths that will carry you forward. First, your test was never your punishment, it was your preparation. Every tear you shed, every sleepless night you endured, every moment you felt like giving up, God was forging you into something the world has never seen. You didn't just survive the fire, you became refined gold. Second, the doors you've unlocked through your faithfulness aren't just for you, they're for generations. Your children and grandchildren will walk through opportunities that exist because you refuse to quit. Your pain purchased their freedom, and your perseverance paved their path. Third, what you've overcome has positioned you to help others overcome. Your story isn't just a testimony, it's a lifeline for someone drowning in the same storms you've conquered. But here's what I want you to know, in the depths of your spirit, you are not alone. Even in this moment, as you hear these words, God is working behind the scenes of your life. He's orchestrating connections, opening doors, and preparing blessings that will astound you. The same God who brought you through the hardest test is still writing your story, and the best chapters are yet to come. And you have a community here, thousands of chosen ones who understand your journey, who've walked similar paths, who are ready to stand with you in prayer and encouragement. In the comments below, you'll find others who know exactly what you've been through, others who will celebrate your victories and lift you up in your moments of weakness. So let me ask you this final question. If God has brought you this far, proven his faithfulness through every trial, and positioned you for breakthrough after breakthrough, what dream, what calling, what impossible thing will you finally have the courage to pursue? Before we close, I want to thank every single one of you who has stayed with me through this entire message. Your presence here, your engagement, your hearts that are open to receive what God is speaking, it means everything. If this message has touched your soul, if you feel the fire of purpose burning within you, please subscribe to this channel and hit that notification bell. Join our family of chosen ones who are walking in their divine destiny. And please, share this message with someone who needs to hear it. You might be the voice that reaches someone sitting in their darkest hour, wondering if God has forgotten them. Your simple act of sharing could be the very thing that saves their faith. Leave a comment below and tell us, what door is God opening in your life right now? What breakthrough are you believing for? Don't keep it to yourself. Declare it, claim it, and let this community stand with you in faith. Type doors are opening if you believe your season of breakthrough has begun. Now, let me place my hand on your shoulder through this screen and pray with you. Heavenly Father, I thank you for every precious soul who has heard this message. I thank you for their courage to endure tests that would have broken weaker spirits. I thank you for refining them in the fire and bringing them out as pure gold. Lord, I speak over each chosen one, listening. Let every door the enemy tried to seal be blasted open by your mighty hand. Let every generational curse be broken by the power of Jesus' blood. Let every tear they've shed become a seed of joy that springs up in their children and grandchildren. Father, pour out your spirit of wisdom and revelation upon them. Open their eyes to see the doors you've unlocked through their faithfulness. Give them boldness to walk through those doors without fear or hesitation. Bless their families, Lord. Heal their bodies. Restore their finances. Strengthen their relationships. Ignite their purpose. Let your favor surround them like a shield, and let your goodness and mercy follow them all the days of their lives. And Lord, when they feel alone, remind them that you are always with them. When they feel weak, remind them that your strength is made perfect in their weakness. When they feel forgotten, remind them that they are engraved on the palms of your hands. Thank you, Father, for choosing them before the foundation of the world. Thank you for the incredible destiny you have planned for their lives. Thank you that their greatest days are not behind them, they are ahead of them. In the mighty name of Jesus, the name above every name, I declare it, I decree it, and I seal it with the blood of the Lamb. Amen. You are chosen, you are loved, you are never alone, and your breakthrough is closer than you think. Go in peace, walk in power, and shine with the light of the one who called you out of darkness into his marvelous light. Until we meet again, chosen one, until we meet again.